Places to live in Tampa. I just wanted to let you know a couple things. Number one, I'm going to use the words areas and cities interchangeably. And the reason is because a lot of these places like Wesley Chapel, New Tampa, Odessa, Riverview, Brandon, Apollo Beach, etc., they're not cities. They're just areas. They're unincorporated areas. They don't have a mayor. They don't have a city council. So I just want you to understand that. The second thing is there's really not a best place to live. There's a best place to live for you. So that's why I'm going over this. Obviously, things have changed in our area, so I wanted to do an updated video. But a while back, I had a gentleman call me, and he was looking at flying into town, wanted to look at a very specific home in a subdivision and make an offer on it. Well, I asked him a little bit of more information. What are you looking for? What's important to you? Describe your perfect subdivision, your perfect home. I ended up finding out he was working with another realtor for a couple months. He wasn't really happy, and he was flying back into town. And after asking him a lot of questions, we decided another neighborhood was going to be a lot better for him. So he went to work that night looking into the area that I suggested, and he called me the next day and he said, I'm completely changing my criteria. Why hasn't anybody told me about this other area? It's perfect. It's exactly where we wanted to live. So the reason why I bring this up is the reason why I'm doing this video. I don't want anybody to make a mistake when they're moving. I don't want you to move here, be in a home, and then go over to a friend's house, maybe for a birthday party or a party, and think to yourself, wow, maybe we should have bought a home down here. This is much nicer. So I'm going to go over this in this video, and I'm going to just give you straight to the point and give you what you need to know on these different areas so you can make a good, wise, informed decision. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, so let's start off, and let's start from the bottom down here in Sun City. So we'll start off in Sun City. It's right off the 75. It's real convenient if you want to get to the beaches in St. Petersburg or Sarasota or Anna Maria, as a lot of these south of the Fort are. It's a 55 and older community. It started actually out in the 60s, where you had small little condominiums, and a lot of their condominiums actually look like single family homes. They're just zoned as a condominium. But it's really, really a nice place if you want to be in a 55 and older. They pretty much say if you can't find something to do in Sun City Center, then you're not alive or you're not trying, because there are a ton of different things to do. There's the north side, which is going to be a little bit less expensive and a ton of golf courses, and then the south side of Sun City Boulevard, which is going to be gated, and they have homes built in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, into the 2000s. So that's Sun City Center. If you go over to the east, you could see Waimama. It's sort of a funny name. We have a lot of funny names out here. So Waimama it's really the new frontier. So much of the new construction was being built in Riverview, and it's pushing and it's going further south. So Waimama is basically getting a lot of new homes. It's really, really a developing area. Matter of fact, the second Crystal Lake Lagoon in the United States is currently being built in Waimama. The first one was built up north in Pasco County in Wesley Chapel, but it's sort of the new frontier right now. Things are moving to the south. If you go over to the west of that, you'll see Ruskin. Ruskin's the same way. A lot of developments going on in Ruskin. Now, with Ruskin, you have the west of the 75, which is more the, I guess, affordable or less expensive area in Ruskin because it's not as developed. And if you go over on the east side of 75 next to South Riverview, it's going to be more developed and a little bit higher price, but you get a lot of bang for your buck in Ruskin. Just north of Ruskin is Apollo Beach. Apollo Beach, it's a really nice area. If you want to live on the water, it's so affordable compared to South Tampa or St. Petersburg, and a lot of people like that, to live on the water. There is a power plant in Apollo Beach, so just understand that. And it's not really a beachy. It says Apollo Beach, but it's really brown, murky water. Most of the people are on Apollo Beach because they want to get out to the Gulf of Mexico where the blue and aqua water is. But it is very nice. There's homes in Apollo Beach from, gosh, probably the high hundreds or low 200s all the way up into the multi-millions. There's one of the biggest developments, water set in all the United States is in Apollo Beach. There's a lot of really nice little finger islands if you want to live on the water. And really a lot of them were built in the 80s, some of them were built in the 90s, and there's some McMansions out there as well. So if you go over to the west, you'll see northwest it says Riverview. Now where the dot is right here, and if you see where my mouse is right here, where the dot is, Riverview is a pretty large area. So this is the North Riverview right here, and then Riverview goes all in this area right here, all the way down to into, if you kept on going on 301, which is where my mouse is, if you go on to the west side over here, it's going to be the Ruskin area. If you go further south and go down here, you're in the Waimama area. But Riverview, it started off years ago when I moved in 2006, and pretty much just mainly first-time homebuyer homes. The big drive back then was New Tampa, which is further north in Hillsborough County, and there's a lot of first-time homebuyer homes, but not anymore. Riverview has really blossomed. There's a lot of development going on in Riverview. There's entrance level homes, there's mid-level homes, there's semi-custom homes. It's just a lot of new construction. There's not much in Riverview prior to the 2000s. It's pretty much all after. So if a lot of people, if you want a place to live and you want new construction and you have a family and you want a lot of amenities, Riverview, Waimama, Ruskin, because a lot of new homes are going in there. Now let's go over to the east, and you can see right here it says Fishhawk Ranch, Lithia. Okay, you would, if you're looking things up on the internet or talking to someone, it is Lithia. But pretty much the only thing in Lithia is not only thing, but Fishhawk Ranch. Fishhawk Ranch is a master plan community. Now, when I say master planned, I'm not like a builder. I'm not talking about a planned unit development. I'm talking about something that had a 10 to 15 year projection on it, where everything was projected, where all the schools were, where the strip centers are, everything. Fishhawk is a really nice area. There's a lot of different sections in there, so it depends what section and what phase you live in. A lot of people really like Fishhawk Ranch because they have 4 schools and every one of them is A-rated. Now, you are a little further away from the I-75. The other thing that attracts people to Fishhawk Ranch is military. Down in South Tampa, right down here where my mouse is MacDill Air Force Base. There are basically buses and shuttles that take people from Fishhawk to MacDill, so a lot of people really like that. But Fishhawk is pretty much completely built out on new construction. Not that there's not a few homes left as of the time of this recording, but it's pretty much built out. We'll go north of Fishhawk into Valerico. Valerico is an older area, primarily built in the 80s, a little bit in the 70s maybe, some in the early 90s, but Valerico is a very nice area. It tends to be a little congested trying to get to the 75 because you have to go through the nucleus of Brandon, which is the 60, and that's a very backed up road. But it is an older area. Brandon is anybody living south of the 4 right here is pretty much going to Brandon for everything. Brandon has the mall, the movie theaters in Riverview and Brandon, but just any type of restaurant you could ever think of and any type of store shopping is in Brandon. Now, Brandon was built primarily in the 70s and 80s. Some of it was built in the 90s, some of it was built in the 2000s, but primarily the 70s and 80s, primarily smaller homes. Valorico is going to be a little bit larger homes overall, but if you're in Apollo Beach, if you're in Ruskin, Riverview, and you're going to dinner, there are a lot of restaurants in those areas, but everything's in Brandon, so just FYI. There's been a lot of talk about a mall going up in Riverview, but with the mall in Brandon, I don't know if that's going to happen. All right, so that's south of the 4. Now let's move over to the Channel Side and the whole South Tampa area. So the Channel Side area is in the downtown area. It was basically started years ago in the last boom in the early 2000s, and they had a lot of really nice projections for the Channel Side area with the lofts and restaurants, and that's where our port is if you want to go on a cruise, and that's where the aquarium is, and convention center is all down in that area. But this is really booming, especially with all the renovation that's going on with billions and billions of dollars projected to go on in the whole downtown area. They've since put up different hotels. They put up the River Walk, which is just gorgeous. It's just, this area is just exploding. I personally think in the next, I don't know, probably 10 or 20 years, the downtown Tampa area, the Channel Side area, is going to be one of the predominant places in the country to go, just with the stuff they're going to be doing there. So what's going on in the downtown area, in the Channel Side area? Jeff Vinnick, he's the one that owns the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he owns about 85% of all the land down there. He's going in joint with Bill Gates, and they're putting like $3 billion into this area, revamping the entire area. It's going to be unbelievable. So just to let you know that. South Tampa, just next to Channel Side, where the mouse is, if you could see it, this is really the nucleus of Tampa right here. This is primarily built, started after the turn of the centuries. A lot of cigar factories and a lot of people from Cuba were coming over. Just below in the tip of South Tampa is MacDill Air Force Base. So there's homes of pretty much any value. Homes built in the early teens and the 30s, the 50s, the 80s. There's a lot of tear-me-downs out there. If you look where the dot is right here in South Tampa, you have Bayshore Boulevard, which there's a lot of condos and lofts and just everything's in South Tampa. Restaurants, car dealerships, you name it, it's in South Tampa. Just north of South Tampa, as you can see, is the airport, so it's very convenient for people who live in South Tampa. And where the airport is in the South Tampa, there's a couple really nice malls, a lot of shopping, a lot of things going on there. If you look just right to the airport where my mouse is, if you could see me hovering and swirling, this road right here is Dale Mabry. Everything's on Dale Mabry. So you're going to be restaurants and comedy clubs and car dealerships, you name it. If you go north on Dale Mabry, just on the north side of 275 isn't quite the nicest area in the world, but if you get up to Carrollwood's really nice. Carrollwood was primarily built in the 80s, some of the 70s, and they're large homes, which is very unusual. When you think back to the 80s, most homes that were being built were 1,300, 1,500 square foot homes, and not in Carrollwood. A lot of 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 square foot homes. Really nice area. So if someone wants to be near the South Tampa, not quite the price of the South Tampa or in the South Tampa area, and they want a really nice, luxurious, older, more matured home and area, Carrollwood's the place for them. It's really nice. Just to the east of Carrollwood is Temple Terrace. Now that's where the University of South Florida is, primarily older. It's sort of the opposite of Carrollwood. It's where the little homes were built, the 1,100, 13, 15, 1,700, 2,000 square foot homes, primarily built in the 70s and 80s. A lot of rentals going on there. Now there are some really nice areas in Temple Terrace, but overall it has a lot of the smaller homes. If you go over to the east and you see West Chase is a very, very popular and really, really high demand area. West Chase is really, really nice. It tends to get pricey. A lot of executives will live in West Chase because it's not in the South Tampa area. It's not around the airport area, but it is a very, very nice area with golf courses, gated communities. And it's close to the airport, it's close to South Tampa, but it's crazy as far as trying to find a home there because they just sell so quick in West Chase, and it's always been like that. Very nice area. Citrus Park is older. It's not quite what West Chase is. Citrus Park has Citrus Park Mall, so there's of course the mall right there. There's restaurants right there. It's primarily built in the 80s, again some in the 70s, maybe a little in the 90s, but West Chase is more of a newer area, more of an upscaled area. If you go just over to the east and you'll see Northdale. Northdale is to the east, northeast of Citrus Park and just north of Carrollwood. Northdale, gosh, how would I say this? Really nice area. Everything's right up Dale Mabry right there, but it's almost like the little Carrollwood. So as they were in Carrollwood and building these big homes, 2,500, 3,500 square feet, when they went to Northdale, those were more the 13, the 15, the 1,700 square foot homes. Now you do have homes 2,500 square feet as well, but Carrollwood is definitely going to be nicer and more expensive than Northdale. Over to the west you have Odessa. Now Odessa is, you can see where the dot is, that's where this Highway 54 is. That's pretty much the county line. So when you go north of that by Starkey Wilderness Park, you're going to be in Pasco County. If you go south, you're going to be in Hillsborough County. So Odessa is part in Hillsborough, part in Hillsborough, part in Pasco. Now Odessa is a little interesting to explain. So Odessa has a lot of acreage properties. So it's sort of a rural area. So someone says to me, I have a good amount of money to spend and I want to be in a rural area, but I don't want to be up in the country like Dade City. Then Odessa could be a really good choice for them. As you can see, there's a lot of lakes in Odessa, much like Land O'Lakes, and there's also a lot of McMansions in Odessa. Now, this is the Odessa south of the 54. If you look at Odessa north of 54, there's a lot of brand new developments going on, like Starkey Ranch and other developments. Ivy Lakes is a development that's was built in like 03 through 06 area. So it just really depends what you want in Odessa. But overall, when I have to describe Odessa to people, I'll say it's more of a rural area, but expensive homes with big lots. So just to the east of that is the Lutz. Lutz is, again, very difficult to explain. Most of Lutz is in Hillsborough County. Some of the Lutz is actually in Pasco County. Most of Lutz is older, built in the 70s, built in the 80s. I mean, there's single family homes, there's modular homes, there's gorgeous mansions out there. Some communities are gated, some communities are not. I mean, it's all over the board in Lutz. But it is a very convenient location, and a lot of people like Lutz, so it really depends what you're looking for. I can't really put my finger on Lutz because it is such a diverse area of construction and what's out there. I mean, you could literally go and be going up Livingston in Lutz and you'll see modular home track, then $1 million homes. So pretty interesting. Just north of Lutz is Land O'Lakes, and this is in Pasco County, called Land O'Lakes because there are tons of lakes. Land O'Lakes is overall it's a newer area. There are homes there that were built in the 80s, were built in the 90s, but most of Land O'Lakes is newer. There's a lot of new developments in Land O'Lakes. So if you want a new home, you want a new area, Land O'Lakes is a place to be. It's really popular, and where a lot of people like Land O'Lakes is maybe they're working by the airport, maybe they're working in South Tampa, and they could just go west on the 54 and shoot down the Veterans Expressway. If you see my mouse, I'm moving around by Odessa. Okay, so this right here is the Veterans Expressway. It's a tollway, so it's real easy if you live in Land O'Lakes. Over to the west right here, or to the east, is Wesley Chapel. Now, Wesley Chapel, this is the boom. Wesley Chapel is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. They're absolutely exploding. There's a ton of stuff going on in Wesley Chapel. When I moved here in 2006, Wesley Chapel was like New Tampa's little brother. Just a lot of little first-time homes there for first-time home buyers, smaller homes, entrance level. But as New Tampa started to get landlocked, and all the ground started to free up in Wesley Chapel, it has exploded. There's malls that have gone in, 2 new malls that have gone in, there's hotels that have gone in, ice rinks that have gone in, hospitals that have gone in, tons of new construction homes, not just residential, but a lot of commercial growth as well. So a ton of stuff is going on in Wesley Chapel, and it's one of the highest demand areas in all of Tampa Bay because of that reason. So if you are looking for a new home and you want to be where all the action is because of the malls, the restaurants, everything, Wesley Chapel is a good place. A lot of times people say, well, I want Wesley Chapel or I want Riverview because there's a ton of new homes in Riverview. Riverview is going to be more about the home. Wesley Chapel is going to be more about the area because you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck in a home in Riverview, in a newer home, than you can in Wesley Chapel. So it really depends what you want. Just south of Wesley Chapel is New Tampa. New Tampa was the Wesley Chapel back in 2006 when I moved here. Everybody was going to New Tampa. They called it New Tampa because at the time everything was just new. It was primarily virtually everything in Wesley Chapel and in New Tampa was predominantly built after the 2000s. Now there are communities in New Tampa like Tampa Palms, which is a master plan community, and Hunter's Green and Pebble Creek that were built in the 90s, even a couple of them in the late 80s, but overall it's a new area, a lot of new homes. Nice thing about the Wesley Chapel and New Tampa area, if people's kids go to University of South Florida, it is real close. You do have a huge park backing up and being right next to New Tampa and Wilderness Lake Park. It's really nice if you want to go for walks, if you want to do off-road bike riding, if you want to do kayaking, canoeing. There's all kinds of things to do up in the wilderness. And where my mouse is here, it says Hillsborough River State Park. A lot of stuff to do up there.